Well, welcome back, everybody, joining us for the fourth and final race in the Spartan North American Elite 3K series from St. Luis Potosi, Mexico. I'm David Magida, joined by Jack Bauer, the stat man himself. And Jack, it's been quite a season. We finally get to see these athletes laid on the line and compete for that elusive 3K title.
Yep, it's it's the beginning of fall, which means all the athletes are fit. This is typically around championship season. We just saw a number of the athletes who are going to be here this weekend compete at OCR Worlds last weekend in California. So, the battles are going to be tight, and this is the second straight trip down to Mexico that they've had. So it's going to be exciting to see how they do.
Now, of course, on the men's side, we're looking at a number of guys, like you mentioned, that just finished racing a 3K World Championship race. How do we think, and on the women's side, of course, as well, how do we see, before we get into the specific players, that playing out as compared to how it shook out a week ago? Because we did have some surprise podium finishers in that OCR World Championship finish. Ian Hosek, for example, laying his mark down on both the 3K and the 15K. So obviously these courses are different. The obstacles are different. Where do we see some overlap?
Yeah, well, actually, I'm going to start with where we don't see any overlap. This course in Mexico is flat as a pancake versus the one that athletes saw in Mexico, which is on the side of a ski mountain. The elevation difference were about 3,000 feet lower. I was told by Steve Hammond, roughly in like the 5,900, 6,000 feet mark for the elevation, but there's very little gain or drop at all. It's almost like a soccer field with some nice low grass for this Mexico course. So if you're one of the faster athletes, you've got some high turnover, you like just running fast and not grinding up a mountain, this might be the race that really changes things for your season. And I don't think you can necessarily look into the results that you had last week at OCR Worlds or even at a Palmerton or a Big Bear, which were notably different type of courses. That this might be more of what we saw in Palm Beach, where it's the flat, fast, little bit of sand type of course today.
So these courses certainly favored the swift-footed over the grinders, the climbers, and what we'll see is very, very quick 1K times, very, very quick 3K times. And I personally think this leads to a more exciting, we don't know who's going to be able to take this kind of event. So let's break it down a little bit. Let's talk about that course in a bit more depth. What's our terrain looking like? What is our footing? What's the map look like? Oh, here we go.
Yeah, so if we look at a lot of the races so far for the 3K series specifically, we saw Palm Beach. Most of the athletes were finishing around that 7-minute mark, and that was very flat, very fast. It had 2 carries. This one does not have a bucket carry, but it has a double sandbag carry, 90 pounds for the men, 60 pounds for the women. I was told that it rained recently, so who knows? Those might feel a little bit heavier. They might be a little bit more difficult to pick up if there's a little water. Could have dried out since then, but that plays in it a little bit. There's also a little bit of mud toward about 2/3 of the way through right before Phoenician's Pass. So that could slow the athletes down again. But once again, you go back to Big Bear, that was about 8 minutes, and Palmerton in the, low sevens or so. So I think that standard 7 or so minute range is what we're looking at, despite the really flat conditions.
And you mentioned Phoenician's Pass, and I think for those in the audience who don't know what that is, let's break down exactly the difference between Phoenician's Pass and a traditional A-frame.
Yep. So A-frame cargo net, typically it just, looks like an A. And then Phoenician's Pass, you have a couple of vertical posts or vertical cargo climbs. And then there's a net going horizontally across it at the top. You are not allowed to run or roll over it for safety purposes. So every athlete's going to have to crawl, and it's essentially a sagging net. They did have this at the Pan American Championship in Mexico in August. So this won't be the first time that athletes have seen this. It's been, used in other courses in the past as well. But this is the second straight 3K race, second straight one in Mexico, in which that obstacle, which definitely resulted in some in some lead, or not lead changes, but positional changes during the race in Mexico before. So I think that it's a solid obstacle to have to make up a little bit of ground.
This is actually a throwback obstacle for those who raced back in the 2011, 2012, 2013 days. They used to stack shipping containers, and you'd have to climb a vertical cargo net up, cross over a cargo net, and then climb down the backside. And they use this primarily as a means to have the course go over a road that had entranceway for vehicles, and it does look like it's going over a road once again. So I personally really like that they're bringing back some of the old school stuff and then branding it as new.
Definitely. And David, you mentioned in the old school Mexico days, you actually raced in Mexico in 2013. What was that experience like?
I did race in Mexico. This was early Spartan Mexico days, and we found was sandbags were lighter, walls were lower, everything was a little bit easier. They caught up now. They are putting on like a very high quality product. But what we found then was the terrain was nasty. We were racing mountains. We were running in Valle de Bravo, I believe. We were looking at something like closer to 10,000 feet of at elevation, and that was the first race ever that we met. Excuse me, I'm spacing on this. I believe this was the first race that we had ever publicly seen Angel Quintero. So he came out. Hunter and I and Miguel Medina had flown down there with a few other athletes, and what we did see was we expected Hunter to win, but instead Angel Quintero came out and won that race. So that was like his debut and the return of, I guess the beginning of his great career. And he's going to be racing up there today. And this is a home race for Angel.
Definitely, yeah. Angel is actually you have a similar streak, but Angel is a podium every single year dating back to 2013. You've got one 2012. COVID year kind of stopped that streak, a little iffy there, but regardless, he's going on 11 years of dominance, mainly throughout Mexico. But he's one of the rare athletes. You saw it a little earlier on the women's side, Alex Ordina, but she isn't really active in the sport anymore. But he was the first premier athlete from Mexico to come over and race consistently in the US and do really well on the big stage. So but not after last year when we went to Puebla, you saw Ciro Perez, Eugenio Godinez Romero, and some of the other athletes just set their mark and finish in the top 5, beating a lot of the more familiar names in this flat, faster terrain. There are some really quick athletes out there from Mexico who might be changing it or might be affecting the standings versus the normal U.S. and European athletes who we're used to.
Yeah, and I think for Angel, you're looking at a guy who is essentially Hall of Fame from the perspective of like Spartan Mexico. He is like the GOAT right now. So
Yeah.
it's nice to see that he is still continuing in this career, that he's going to take a shot today to try and win this thing. And who are going to be his big contenders that he's going to be facing off with today, Jack?
Yep. So if we go back to the Pan American 3K Championship a couple months ago in Mexico, Angel got second behind VJ Jones. VJ will not be here, but Angel getting second, Eugenio Godinez about 15 seconds behind him, Ciro Perez after him in fourth. Those are your top 3 big names from Mexico who they're very fast. Eugenio is a low 150s 800 runner. Ciro, he has a marathon PR in the 220s. You've got some really fast people from Mexico. But if we're looking at and the men are going first, if we're looking at some of the other names, Rylan Shadegg, who just won the OCR World's 3K course. This is the 3K. If it's a short, painful race, that guy always delivers. I think anything under that 30-minute zone right now or duration, he's almost impossible to beat, whether it's an OCR or hybrid. So I think Rylan, there's a reason he's coming down here. He just won Alpha Warrior as well, so you know that he's really fit. Leon Kofod, who got 3rd place in the 15K, not 3K at OCR Worlds last weekend. I know he's looking forward to a flat, fast course. He wasn't really a fan of hearing that they were going to be bringing double sandbags earlier on in the year when we had Palmerton, but I think he's going to be able to manage, or Big Bear, but I think he's going to be able to manage it. And, he's as obstacle proficient as anybody. And last but not least, Manuel Defoe, Mr. 3rd place at all 3 3K races so far, 3rd place at OCR Worlds 3K. Is he going to finish 3rd today? I mean, it would only make sense.
Yeah, I mean, when I look at that men's field, the first thing that jumps out to me is Shadegg and just his ability to just really both be on obstacles, but just put out such high maximal effort and power. And the other big thing is Manuel Defoe. Manuel, his versatility to do it on flat, to do it on mountains, to do it pretty much in any arena presented to him, any level of terrain. has been really, really impressive. So let's bring up the leaderboard for a little bit. For the men, let's take a look at what we've got here. Coming out of the first three races, your leader, because of three podium finishes in three races, is Manuel Defoe. And you're going to see a name like VJ Jones all the way down at the bottom. Like, he has the one win.
You don't earn points at races you don't show
Kempson,
up to.
Yeah, Kempson down there, 300 points for the one win, and each of them dominant in those wins. But consistency is everything. Showing up is half the battle. And, Manuel Defoe has not only shown up, but he has been very, very good every single time.
Yep. And Manuel right now is, after this race, the winner of the entire series will get $5,000, $2,500 for second place, and $1,000 for third place as a bonus for your overall standings throughout the year. Manuel sitting in first, but Rylan has the potential. If Rylan ends up winning and Manuel gets third or worst, Rylan will actually move into first place. Manuel, if he wins, gets second place, no matter what, he's going to win the series. He would need, since he has three, like it's best out of three, he has 3 third places. There's no way he can go lower, essentially. So he can only go up if he gets first or second. And as long as he is within 1 place of Rylan, he's going to end up with the series win. It's looking very likely that Rylan will end up in second place, and Tyler, who is not here, will likely finish in third on the men's side.
Strong move by Tyler, just doing the math ahead of time and figuring out that he was going to have a podium position regardless.
Yep, definitely.
And so let's talk.
I was going to say, you mentioned right before the versatility of Manuel. We have to remember this is the 4th time he's come over from Europe. That's just crazy travel. He's done it to Pennsylvania. He's gone to California, Mexico, and Florida. So as well traveled, we know that he's already been in the U.S. for OCR Worlds where he just got third, but we know that he can travel well. So even though this is a little bit different culture for most of the athletes who are traveling internationally, I don't think it's going to affect him.
Well, traveling is so difficult. It's one of those things where when you're changing time zones, it really takes a toll on you. It takes a toll on you mentally. It takes a toll on you physically. You're out of your routine. You're eating different things. Manuel has figured this out. He's got this down. And I would say in this race, it's probably an advantage to him over a lot of the American racers who now are taking a really big international trip. And so this is a harder trip for a lot of these athletes. And Manuel's a bit more used to it at this point. It levels the playing field for him even more.
Can't say anything better myself. Yep. And do you want to
Let's
move
talk
on
about
to
the women's race a little bit? Yeah, we have the same idea, Jack, and that is get into the women's race. Let's talk about the athletes that we have showing up today. Let's talk about how we expect this to shake out.
Exactly. Yep. The main contenders that we're going to see here: second place finisher at Big Bear, Ali Tippett, and then also traveling. She usually travels with Manuel, Janka Popova, Ida Steensgaard, and Chris Rogloski. They'll be the main European and U.S. based athletes who will be traveling here. A lot of the overall $5,000, bunch of different combinations that could affect that. But you also have a lot of very talented athletes from Mexico. Eloisa Godinez Romero, who is the older sister of Eugenio, who we mentioned as a contender on the men's side, always a podium threat. She's consistently winning or second place at a lot of the local races and national series races, specifically in Mexico. Berenice Pereira, I believe she finished in the top 5 in Palm Beach. She had a good showing and always one of the best athletes in Mexico. Isabel Zamora Zarate, she consistently comes over to a lot of the races in Texas. I believe she lives in El Paso, and she just consistently battles with Alex Walker and some of the other athletes in the southern part of the U.S. So I think that you actually have some of the top names from Mexico who will be showing up, and some serious contenders from the U.S. and Europe as well. If you want to go over some of the who could win combinations like we talked about with Manuel and Rylan, I can do that as well.
Let's pull up the women's leaderboard if we've got it, Jason, and let's talk about how we expect things to shake out here for the series. I mean, obviously, Janka's got a nice lead at this point, but with a race advantage.
Yeah, it's the same deal where it's best 3 out of 4, and some of the athletes behind her do not have 3 races yet. Janka has. She got second place in Palm Beach, 4th in Big Bear, and 5th in Palmerton. If Janka wins this race, she's first in the series. She'll have 780 points. No one else can catch her. However, Chris Rogloski sitting in second place. She has a real chance of ending up in the series win and getting that $5,000. If she finishes top 3, automatically wins the series. If she finishes 4th, she just needs Janka and Ida, or if she finishes 5th, she just needs Janka and Ida to finish 2nd or worst. So someone else would need a win in that case, but it's very likely that if Chris finishes in the top 3 or 4, she's going to end up with the overall title. And Ida, she does have a chance of winning. She gets 772 points if Chris finishes 5th or worst and Janka gets 2nd. So kind of unlikely, but you do have 3 potential winners of the series based on a number of random finishes. So we'll see what happens. My gut is saying that Chris, who, she ran a 100-miler a couple weeks ago, did Alpha Warrior recently, did not do OCR Worlds, which is a little surprising considering she's had success there in the past. But this is just an easy week for her. She has a ton of rest. She didn't run a 100-miler this week, so I feel like this is her race to lose.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to bet against Chris Rogloski with the numbers in her favor, and she's running really well. She did run that 100-miler recently, which is actually insane that she's back out here doing this as well. But this is par for the course. This is what we come to expect from Chris Rogloski. So I would love to take this thing out to the race course and let's get after it, guys. Let's go check out Heat 1 of the men's race. So that's going to be popping up on your screen right now. And so what we're going to have today, Jack, is a prelim, 2 heats of a prelim, and then we're going to go straight to the final. We're not going to do that same 2 rounds of 1K and then the 3K. We're going to do a single 1K for each of the 2 heats of the men and each of the 2 heats of the women, and then we'll go right to the 3K championship race, and then we're going to know our series champions at the end of it.
Exactly, and we've got 11 obstacles, as we mentioned. So right away, they are going to be going into a 5-foot wall, monkey bars, and then a 3-section twister. So that'll be interesting. If we're looking from left to right, I'm seeing Ciro Perez, Eugenio Godinez Romero, Rylan Shadeg, Miguel Ponton, and I can't identify the 5th athlete on the right, but you've got some fast runners right here. Rylan actually might not even be one of the 3 fastest pure runners in this field right now. That's kind of crazy to say, but those guys are fast on flat ground.
Now, what about the whole idea of understanding who you're racing, knowing their styles, knowing how they like to run? Do you think that that's going to have any factor in today's first opening 1K, or because it's just so frenetic and fast, it's really just about who's able to just get through it at an all-out effort, especially since we're only doing it once?
Yeah, I don't know if you talked with VJ after the Pan American Championships. He had a game plan. They went off at like 4-minute mile pace, and he's like, well, I guess my strategy just changed. Sometimes you just have to go with the field, and they dictate the race, even if you planned on running it a different way. But at the end of the day, I think it's just survive this 1,000-meter round, make it to the finals, and then you might have a little bit of a different strategy there, and you'll get a feel for how the other athletes around you are going to likely approach that 3K round as well. So right here, you just kind of need to make sure that you do not get eliminated time-based.
And that's it. We only have, 7 athletes moving on to the final. So it's extremely important that they get out hard. And with only 1K and not 2 of them, you don't really need to save that much juice. You really can full send. It's only 1K. You can recover from that with a little bit of time to go then run your 3K. And that's where we'll see the tactics really taking over. But, man, these guys are moving.
Look at Rylan's stride right now. Does he look like he's saving anything? I don't think so.
Does he look like a guy who's been injured? No, he does not.
No.
He looks fantastic.
He looks like he's kicking home in an 800 right now. It's a good thing they have that 4-wheeler, because the speed that these guys are going on the flats, this might be tiring for those camera people.
He is looking extremely powerful, more so than he did last year. The power in his legs, like in his hamstrings and his quads, looks like, I mean, he's put on a little bit of muscle, and it has not affected his stride at all.
Yeah, he's been dealing with the foot issue for most of the year, but that has not affected his performances at all. I think he's been running, whenever he does run, he's been very intentional, and you're right, he's definitely bigger and stronger, but he can move weight as good as anybody. Oh, we might have a transition. Yep.
That was in a very, very smooth.
Yes, I didn't see his face, but I think that's Eugenio based on him starting on the left side of the screen earlier on. putting on some gap right there on Ryland, who just won the 3K World Championship at OCR World. So, that was a really good move there. And this is a 3-section twister.
You got the arm over arm technique. You have the reverse technique from Ryland. And they're finishing in about the exact same amount of time. It just goes to show you there's no one way to do any of these obstacles. It's just what's comfortable.
What are your thoughts at the end of the race having to do that 3 times? So basically 9 twister sections. I think that there's going to be 10, 15 seconds that you'll be able to make up if you're efficient on that.
At least. I mean, one of the things is when you run these 3K versions of these short courses, the first lap feels good. The second lap, all of a sudden, your body doesn't understand what's happened to it. Your arms get very heavy if there's a lot of hanging and grip-based obstacles. The blood pump getting in there is real. And then on that third round, people start falling apart. They really do. And so, especially if they're really redlining. And so, on a single lap course, it's not going to be that much of a factor. But yeah, 3 times through, you're looking at major time losses theoretically. People are going to become very conservative. They're just going to be hanging on and trying to complete obstacles. And Ryland looks very comfortable, but the speed has slowed down dramatically.
Here comes the double sandbag. You know that if I'm willing to bet, they're basically picking up this double sandbag at the same time. Ryland is going to be close to 7-8 seconds ahead of him at the end of this. I wonder the shape. You can see that they have the yellow tape. Often they put it in the shape of a Spartan shield, but I don't know if they're going to necessarily do that here. Miguel, he struggled with the double sandbag in Big Bear. I remember he picked it up slightly ahead of me, and I had a hard time lifting it up as well. But that's good to see him. He's been working on the technique, being able to get that up pretty quickly this time.
Heat number 2, they are over in a big cluster at Twister right now, and it's going to be a tight little one right there. So in Heat 2, who do you see right now?
In Heat 2, well, we didn't mention. Right, I was going to say Leon and Angel Quintero are the 2 names that we talked about in the preview who we have not seen in the Ryland group. So just because you're having a good start, and it looks like Eugenio is really struggling to hang on to this at the end here. Ryland has it comfortably on both sides, but Eugenio is just making every last ditch effort to hang on to that thing the final 20 feet, and it looks like he made it. But yeah, I think Leon and Angel were the 2 biggest names who we didn't see, and Manuel Defoe also. Man, that second heat, they can't settle in this this first round because only half of the people will end up making it to the final, and you're gonna see a couple names get knocked out, I think.
Well, here we are over at Phoenician's Pass.
Yeah, we'll see how it is. So they're not allowed to.
It's that top section, but it's not looking very slack. It's pretty tight. So it's almost like a bear crawl across the top of it.
Definitely. And a lot of people say carries and crawls are where you can make the biggest difference. That's actually a pretty long crawl considering they said you're not allowed to walk across it. So I think technique will play a decent role. You'll see Ryland flip over this, get to the bottom. Yeah, he's one of the best getting on and off the cargo net. No surprise there. But look, the past 2 obstacles, they did a double sandbag and a crawl. Just like I mentioned, you can make up a ton of ground. They weren't even at the flipping stage, essentially, at that point.
All right, and now we're going under rolling mud. Don't usually see a rolling mud with the chain link fence. This is almost like a little Tough Mudder influence.
Tough Mudder one, yeah. Yep. And the temperatures, I was told, were in the mid-70s or so. So, still pretty nice, but I don't think that, the water is going to... It's not a frozen dunk wall or anything like you might have seen in Big Bear.
It's not shaking up the race too much. All right, so you see Ryland just grabbing a little bit of ground just to try and dry those hands off a little bit. One last push in here.
And you can see Manuel on the bottom of the screen, very aggressive like usual. Is that Leon sitting in third behind him?
Yeah, that second heat
let's actually get a
competitive.
Yeah, we'll go back to them at the end. I just want to get the arrangement. So it looks like you go from a bar and then just a lot of rings. This rig is over water. We saw a couple of athletes in the Pan American 3K fall. It was a slightly, they look a little bit uneven. slightly different layout than they had last time. I think that they had some ropes, but doing that 3 times after your hands are wet, going through that little under the fence crawl, that could affect things in the finals.
It could. It absolutely could. I mean, when you hit like a wet pipe, for example, it can be extremely slick and hard to work with, particularly. I think the rings are a little bit easier to handle.
Did you see that quick transition from Ciro? He just launched himself off of that. He is in the military, or I believe he's in the military, or he's a police officer. So he's going to just nail this pistol real quick, the laser pistol. He'll be off, and I believe being under 7 minutes, he should be in the finals. Yep, nice and quick. And in third, he better do that quickly with Leon, Emmanuel, and Angel in the second heat closing fast.
And he's no urgency across that finish line. He knows he'd locked up his position. He's saving all the energy that he could. No, I mean, that's the key. It's just, here's Manuel Defoe heading over the 6-foot wall. A little pass there.
Angel?
That looks like Angel. That's Angel Quintero.
That's Angel. Yeah.
Yep, that was Angel Quintero. And so you've got like a dogfight going with these three.
You can't be surprised, though. I mean, in terms of ability level, they're three of the best at what they do. So this is a great shot. You've got all three of them on the horizontal pipe. My guess is Leon's going to make a move right here and exit first. And fourth,
that was what I was thinking
slightly bigger. That might be Emmanuel. Yep. Oh, surprise. I thought Leon saved that backswing.
That was Angel that made the move. And then we had an athlete drop.
Okay. Oh, you're right.
And then
Angel's definitely Angel.
And Angel's speed is just undeniable. Hit the ground there and just opened it up. And Leon said, I'm good. I've got my spot. I'm good. Yeah. Now that athlete dropped, I didn't catch who that was, but Leon knows that he's safely into the final. Angel is going to be a factor in this championship final because his black-brown speed is probably the best of anybody out here.
Yeah, he's got a sub 15-minute 5K PR. He probably isn't in that shape at the moment, but regardless, he's got wheels. But so do the other guys. Well, and 3 laps at the end, these guys look reasonably tired.
Pace will be very different when we get to the 3K, and we have to look at it from the viewpoint of, how do you race a 1-mile race versus how do you race a 5K? They're very, very different, and same idea here. So don't be surprised if the pace slows a little bit, but it only has to slow about 10% for it to become a manageable pace for them to work for 3 laps.
Doesn't make it any less painful, though. Let's see if this guy can hang on. We saw one athlete fall in the water already. A little surprised on lap 1, to be honest, that happened, but you can see that they are uneven heights. You had to reach up. So if you have maybe with the women's heat starting, I see Ida and Regina and Chris, and we'll need to get a little bit closer on Steve's camera to get that, but definitely some fast athletes, two potential podium finishers from this heat.
We're wrapping up the end of the men's 1K to open this thing up this weekend. Second heat, last finisher coming in, and then the women are going to be lining up at the start line to get ready for their qualifiers.
Yep.
Who's going to get those big cues?
What do you do if you ran an all-out 1K right here or close to it, and you've got potentially 15, 20 minutes until your 3K heat starts? What are you doing if you're one of the guys?
Fluids. What else can you do? Liquid calories, some fluids, and honestly, you just hope that you've got enough juice. Start slow on the second one, That's it. Here we got the first women's heat. Ida Steensgaards. She is force.
Yep.
And Chris Rogloski.
Both of the blondes in this heat. Chris Rogloski, the two of them are arguably almost on the Mount Rushmore, or maybe they are for the women's OCR. What they've done in the past is just ridiculous.
I still think about the rope climb that Ida did out of the water at the Opera House all the time. Actually went to that Opera House. It's enormous. The fact that she was able to do that is incredible. And here's Rylan Shotnick.
Let's hear. Fun and fast. They eat. I guess we'll listen to the announcers. Well, Ida, she ended up winning the OCR Worlds 3K in 2022. She was not at OCR Worlds last weekend, but she has a world title in that. She finished third place in both Big Bear and Palmerton earlier this year. So she's pretty much like Manuel Defoe, coming over from Europe, getting third place in all these Spartan 3Ks. We'll see how she does. But as a former world champion in the 3K distance, she's not intimidated by anybody who's in this field. So, and especially with these flatter, faster courses. Yep, and with the flatter layout, she's a pretty quick runner. You see Ali Tippett's there as well. But I think that Ida, who has been in Colorado for the past couple of weeks, now that it's about 6,000 feet, she's been staying a little over 7,000 feet. So elevation won't get to her. Chris lives in Colorado. You see Ali Tippett right there. She lives in Utah, so she lives at some elevation. And a lot of the athletes in Mexico are high. There's Steve.
We had to point out our rabbit today, Steve Hammond, who we all love so very much. And also, of course, look how much fun they're having back here. Like, I mean, you got to take a trip to Mexico unless you live there. Everyone here, it's good camaraderie. Like, it's a good group. It's memories of a lifetime. And like, let's not forget, like, they're all out here trying to win, but you're out here running with your friends too. So it's really nice.
Yep. And see Regina Mesa Hernandez. She's in the heat in the back. Couldn't see who was stretching on the ground. I think that's Yanka.
Sounds good.
And that might be Eloisa right there. So a few minutes we should be starting.
And again, 2 heats for the women's race. 2 heats of about 5-6 athletes, and then we jump into the final, where we'll basically trim that group in half to go into the 3K. So on prior iterations of this series this year, we've done 2 qualifying heats, 1K, a 1K, and then a 3K to give you 5K total. Today, only 4K of total running. And I honestly think those 1K efforts take more out of them than 3K does to a degree because of how aggressively they're run. Because there is no room for error, because there is no room to pick up steam and close on people late. You have to get out to the front and fight for every place that there is. These 1Ks are devastating.
Yeah, have you ever heard of the track format, devil takes the hindmost? Basically, you're running a lap, and the last place person at the end of that, or say you're running a mile, you have 4 laps, the last place person gets eliminated, and the next lap, the last place person at that point gets eliminated. That's almost how this is, where if you start in heat 1, you've got all these people in heat 2, you don't know how they're doing, and you might get eliminated, without even getting the opportunity to run that 3K because someone runs faster later on.
Every second counts. We love a race like this.
Yep. See Berenice Barrera, I just saw her. So very fast runner. She's in the 18s for her 5K. And one of the other advantages of having this format where you have the 15 minutes or so between the heats.
Yeah. Made a good hard pass on the sandbag carry.
Sandbag is okay for me. But after the water, I going under the water.
Yeah.
I breathe water.
Oh no.
Yeah, it's not hard.
Sounds like Manuel had an extra drink of water that he wasn't expecting. But yeah, one of the advantages you do as the women started second, they got to see how long it took the men. Maybe add a minute or so. If it was a 7-minute round, they might be finishing around 8:30 based on historical results for the 3K. So they got to see where position changes might have happened, who went out fast versus how they finished. So I think that they had a little bit of knowledge insight right there by going second.
4 women in this heat, right? 4 or 5 in the next heat as well, which means you're really only going to have about 5 in the final.
Oh, almost got the first ever false start in OCR history. What are you doing, Eden?
What a start!
Yeah, exactly.
And so what you're going to have here is 2 big Q qualifiers, 2 automatic qualifiers. Ida's stride looks great right now. And then you're going to have the rest. It's going to come down to time. So as we talked about before, every second counts. I think a course like this actually benefits Ida more than it does. Chris can grind through anything, and I think Ida's got the speed to win today.
Ida absolutely does. I actually did a race with her, a local race last weekend, and it was basically in a stadium. It was kind of a mix of a hybrid event and a stadium race, very flat. And Ida has some wheels on the flat. And we mentioned earlier that Chris ran a 100-miler a couple weeks ago. David, would you be looking like this after doing a 100-miler 2 weeks ago?
I would look awful. This is just
Yeah,
incredible.
I
but the way Chris
wouldn't
runs,
be
like
there.
she's heel striking like a little bit more. Ida is a bit more on that forefoot, and you see that force generation. Like she's a bit more of that gazelle type stride, and Chris is a bit more that glider. And on a flat course like this, it does benefit you to have some of that bouncy return on that forefoot stride. And down below,
Now,
we're looking at
Ali Tippett,
the second women's heat has started.
Yep. And I don't know if you saw that on the monkey bars. Ida, she got on it and then basically came to a stop. And I was like, what the heck? That was kind of surprising. And then Chris did the same exact thing. It's because they have the different heights on the monkey bars. They're two of the best obstacles in the world, male or female. So to see them come to a stop was a little surprising, but I think it was due to the difference.
You need to assess and make it. Honestly, it's just not worth the risk. You got to be cautious on some of these. You can hit it hard when you need to, but heat one, with these two, they should be able to just pull away on the running sections, and there's no reason for them to risk their entire race over trying to run a monkey bar.
Regina's doing a good job on this inside lane right here. She might get off right about the same time as Chris, and then I believe Eloisa is the other one who is behind, still on Twister. But yeah, we've seen a little bit of a separation. We saw this in the men's field. A lot of time made up on that Twister section, so we'll see how it goes. Me personally, I think that they should have Atlas Carrot be a little bit longer. I'm sure you, as a strength athlete, feel the same. I feel like it's just an inconvenience when it's only 25 feet each direction or so.
Longer or twice as heavy. Make it so heavy they can barely pick it up.
Yeah. All right.
But Ida looks so smooth when you see her complete an obstacle and get back up to stride so quickly. She's just back to full speed, and her stride is long. And
absolutely, what a night!
Which
night
is a
and day
sign
difference.
of like how good she feels.
Oh yeah, she looked like she was just crawling like a toddler, you know, in barbed wire. Not a lot of stress, which is pretty natural. And what a night and day difference between the barbed wire crawl that we saw in Palmerton last race versus today. Nice and short. No one. If you get cut up, it's your fault today. I think the athletes are a lot happier with this type of layout.
I mean, if you noticed in the previous heats in the men's side, Ryland was going through like legs first. He was almost kicking his feet underneath. So it's when you have that flat, grassy crawl, you can play with it a little bit. You don't have to be as cautious.
Mm-hmm. And if we're looking at the bottom map, looks like Berenice is ahead of Janka by about 7-8 seconds heading into the barbed wire crawl. Janka, who we mentioned is first in the overall series, got second, fourth, and fifth so far at the races. She needs to end up on first place overall. I think she's doing what she can just to make it to the finals. And actually, I misspoke. It looks like Ali Tippett was actually in first in the second heat, closely followed by Berenice. Janka powering along. She actually did the 3K series in Madrid last weekend. They had their championship for the European Elite Series. And I believe she finished 7th place. So she's had 2, 4, 5, and 7 so far this year in 3K iterations. And look at Ali Tippett. We saw her, we saw her make a definitive move on the double sandbag in Big Bear. And look at her just powering along there. Go ahead, Dave.
Over the year, we've seen these athletes really figure out this double sandbag. Like you saw when they first encountered it in Big Bear, it'd be one bag on one shoulder, one bag in front. Couldn't figure out, do I stack them both in front of me? Now everyone is consistently going to the stack the bags, throw them over one shoulder. Like it's taken a little bit of time and studying and practice, and all of a sudden they've figured out exactly how it is to get through this thing as efficiently as possible. And that's one of the secrets to a carry like this, especially when it's double pancake and not just double bag. Where Phoenicians pass now.
I think the double pancake is a harder iteration than the sandbag. One, you could fit more material in there, but it's just a wider frame. It's hard. It's easier to fall off because you have to have a little bit of a wider grip to keep it on your shoulders.
And here's the question: is Ida able to keep her hands dry as she goes through this?
Ida, you could put oil on her hands right now. She is as sure-handed as anybody when it comes on obstacles. I don't think she's worried at all. Not to say that she won't try to dry them off, but anybody in this field, I would not be worried about Ida falling off an obstacle with wet hands.
And Ida's making easy work of this. Honestly, I don't even think she's really at this point running that hard, but based on like her stride, her arm swing, she's looking pretty comfortable. She hasn't overworked this.
Yeah.
She's definitely stayed within herself and put a nice little lead on a little cushion between herself and Chris Rogloski.
Yeah, I didn't see her look back or anything. I think she kind of knows where she's at, and she knows the rest of the competition in this field. I think that she's comfortably going to take it home and ease into the finals, save her energy for that. Look at that. Double. She's skipping the rings. Yeah.
In that second heat, that is Tippett still out in front, just coming off Phoenician's pass herself. And she's been really coming into her own this year. I think it's worth noting that Tippett's has leveled up as an athlete in the last 12 months.
Yeah, Ellie with that surprise finish in Big Bear where she got second place and sixth place in Palmerton. She has always consistently been, that next pack in Spartan Race National Series. A fantastic athlete. We've seen her on American Ninja Warrior. She's got just great athleticism overall. But I think the confidence finishing second place, she actually beat Ida in Big Bear. I think that, she knows she can beat anybody in this field. And she's just leveled up her game this year. So presumably, Ida finished right around 7 flat, which is right where the men were finishing. I can't wait to see the heat times.
Very impressive. And Chris Rogloski looking pretty comfortable coming through. She's figured that laser pistol out.
She almost kept running. I think she thought this was a 100-miler. She's just going to keep going.
The men, they seem to go out really hard, and then a couple of them looked like they died a little slow. And that's the thing about these 1Ks is they're just long enough to really hurt. And then they can kick back on you a little bit. The 3K is going to be paced a little bit more closer to how you pace an actual Spartan race.
Sensibly. So, yeah.
Well, I wouldn't say people race Spartan race particularly sensibly. I would still say they always start the same way too fast. Then people fighting for position to get to the trail in the lead for the single tracking, and then it's basically whoever can hold on. Nobody ever runs from behind in a Spartan race.
That's true. It's like if they're running a 5K, they're setting a mile PR in the first mile, and then they're just hanging on. That's not the smart way to do it in the running world.
Just suffering through it the rest of the way. So I think what we've seen in the hybrid racing is that athletes have started slowing down in the beginning. They've stopped sprinting out as much, and that we're still waiting to see that in Spartan race. And you're not going to see that in the 3K series. You're going to see an aggressive first 1K, and then we'll see.
Yeah. Allie Tippett's just crossed the line, and if they had about a 2-minute gap, she's going to be ahead of Chris Rogloski by a decent margin heading into the finals. We just saw Berenice finish the rig. There's Janka. So I think the two of them are going to have a close finish. We'll see how the pistol does.
Super awesome. This guy named Steve designed it. He did really great.
And you got your supporters as well.
Yeah. Dad and Mom right here.
That's so awesome. In Mexico.
Thanks,
You're
Steve.
proud of your daughter? Look at that.
Always cool having the family there at the race.
Yeah, get a nice family vacation, go to Mexico.
Yep.
Worth the trip. One of my best Spartan memories was going and taking that trip down to Mexico and running a race there and traveling with a group of athletes and doing all of that. Like it's a wonderful experience.
Yeah, you get taken to some pretty crazy places if you do the series. And I remember actually DecaFit Palm Beach, your family was there.
Yeah, well, that's where they live. They live down there.
Yep.
Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah. Bring the parents to the race. Let's hear the athletes.
Easy drive.
Yeah.
Tried to wipe all the mud off in the dirt for a little bit. Yeah, Ogden. Yeah, are you guys in St. George as well? I used to work for like Battle Fire.
All
We're
right.
going to take a look
it
at
looks
the
like all the
times for
athletes.
the men's race, at least.
Yeah, looks like all the athletes have crossed the finish line. Let's see how they stack up.
So, yeah, we did have Angel Quintero with that fastest time, but only a hair in front of Manuel Defoe, and then
I don't know if
Kofed. So
there's no Rylan on here. That might be
I
one
think
of the
Rylan
heats.
is listed in fourth. Yeah, fourth. They just
Joseph. Yeah, gotcha.
they
Sorry.
turned him around a little bit. So what you'll notice is that Rylan barely ekes out 0 for 8. And that is fascinating that it's listed as that close. That second heat had 3 guys finish ahead of him.
That really is surprising.
Now it's going to be a dogfight.
Rylan looked like he had a comfortable lead, and every second, every tenth of a second, truly does matter. We saw that in Palm Beach, Adam Beach, and I think Michael Suazo. There were a couple athletes who were within a tenth of a second or so of making the finals versus that last spot, and this is the second time where we might see literally a tenth of a second be the difference between getting in and not. And we mentioned earlier, Rylan needs to win and have Manuel finish in third or worse, and he almost didn't even give himself the opportunity to get that win.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing is going to be for him is what kind of gear does he have when he gets into that full 3K? Like, I think it's going to change things dramatically, but can Angel Quintero be that guy that helps Rylan win this series? That's the question.
Exactly. Yep. And let's take a look at the women. My guess is that Ida had a commanding lead. Oh yeah. So Rylan was.
So they did start the women only about a minute apart.
Ida was 8:49. Rylan was 8:34. So you have the OCR Men's World 3K champion finishing 15 seconds ahead of Ida. That's how dominating Ida was, and she didn't even look like she was trying.
Yeah, and Chris Rogloski still did pull that second place finish because it was only about a minute between the start of the women's heats. So what we thought maybe Tippett outran her with starting 2 minutes behind. But it must have only been a minute because Tippett's is still about 25 seconds slower through that opening lap.
Mm-hmm. And if we mentioned a really close knockout, 10:08 versus 10:06 is Berenice versus Janka Popova. Janka ended up making it into the finals if they're taking the top half, and Janka was a few seconds behind Berenice heading into the laser pistol. So she closed fast, shot well, and got over the finish line a couple seconds ahead just to squeak into the finals.
And think about the implications that has on the series, because Janka's sitting there at the top of the list right now. Can she improve upon where she's been seated?
Yeah, Janka, if she wins the whole series. Let's listen in.
Where you hurt?
She has a calf injury or a knee. Oh no.
Is it feeling okay? Touching. Yeah. Awesome.
That's a tough thing to do, to travel from Europe with the knee injury to race this against some stiff competition.
It's just, it's disappointing for her. She didn't look quite herself in that opening 1K. Like, she had to close strong just to make the final, and that is a really tough thing when, all year you've been in the mix, you've been competing to win each individual race, and then you aren't able to be yourself on the last day when it matters.
Yeah, definitely. And we saw her finish second place in the opener in Palm Beach, and seeing her drop to 7th place in the Madrid 3K past weekend, you could tell something might be a little bit off. I didn't know that she had the knee injury, but it was clear that her knee was wrapped and she's dealing with a little bit of a setback. But bottom line, she got it herself into the finals, and we've seen it in the past. A lot of crazy things can happen. So if your hands rip, people start failing obstacles unexpectedly. There's And she's a pretty quick runner, so maybe she could do some damage now that they're all in the same heat in the finals. You just need to get there to give yourself a chance.
Got to get there, get yourself in, and then you'll figure out the rest once you're out there. And sometimes things shake out in your favor, and the next thing you know, you've got a chance to be back on that podium. So she absolutely does. It's just going to be a matter of how she feels, how does that knee hold up? So, all right, let's break down the men right now. Well, the men are going to be starting shortly, and we want to talk about essentially scenarios, Jack. Point scenarios. So what are the situations where Rylan can win this thing and where Manuel could win?
Yep. So if Rylan ends up winning the race overall, he'll get 724 points. If Manuel gets second place, he gets 736. But if he gets third, he gets 708. So basically, Rylan needs to win, and he needs help. He needs a Leon or a Angel, and I think Ciro is the last person to get in. He needs one of them to get in between Manuel and himself, assuming that Rylan wins the finals. That's not a gimme, though. Rylan's fourth seed, and he got in by less than a second by roll down. So, saying this is just all hypothetical at this point. But I think that he did the bare minimum just to get himself in the mix in the finals. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him take it out and make people earn it. But, everyone in that heat is willing to go with him and quick enough too. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. But Manuel, he's pretty...
It's worth noting that Rylan did not run in the heat with those top three finishers. He ran in his own heat, and that changes things dramatically. When you're running qualifiers and you're not running against the other top finishers, it's going to look a little bit different. Like, in some ways, you get to run your own race, and the other way, you're not going to war. Like, if he had to go to war in that opening 1,000, would he have run 20 seconds faster? Hard to say. He maybe has an advantage because he didn't have to do that.
Exactly. I think the golden rule is you want to do the bare minimum to get in. Granted, you don't know what it takes. This isn't track and field where the top two in this heat will end up making the final, and then you're just hoping that you have one of the best next qualifiers because some heats end up being more stacked than the others. This is just straight up who are the fastest half of the racers that ran in the prelims. You'll make it to the finals regardless of if you won your heat or not. So he did the bare minimum, and maybe it'll pay off. He's a little bit more rested.
Yeah. Jason, is there any chance we're ready to jump into that men's final, the 3K Elite North American Elite Series final race from St. Luis Potosi? This is for all the marbles, not just for this race, but for the entire series.
It's gonna be flat. It's gonna be fast. Let's see. I just want to. I think we're gonna throw down to Steve real quick. We got a soundbite from him. Ryan looked like he changed the hairstyle, and he ended up winning a 3K championship. So maybe that's the secret to his success.
He's turning into quite the little rebel with that hair. So
that's how I describe
Rylan Shadegg. He's my favorite. When I look at the field, it's not that I doubt the other athletes. Look at Steve Hammond.
Just how passionate, like Rylan and Manuel kind of feeling. I think they're really fighting for that top spot, and I can really see it in them right now that it actually means a lot to them. You can see the concentration on their face. It could be really exciting.
Manuel da Fox se instala en esta final en la categoría Elite. También Manuel da Fox se instala en esta.
Got a little of that.
You got a little bit of what Steve Hammond had to say. Tough over the background announcer, but here we got Angel Quintero, Manuel Defoe, Leon Kofed.
I think Ciro on the right, Rylan, and then on the left, I thought, did Eugenio get in there? I think he's facing everybody on the far left. Yep.
You still have 8. You still have 7 athletes.
I counted 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yep. Oh, I see Manuel Sierra Camacho in there in the back, so that looks like 7. Okay.
I challenge your counting, Sesame Street.
It's not my skill. I'm bad with numbers, remember?
I watch a lot of Sesame Street now. I learned how to count very well this year.
Really? All right, so predictions. How's it going to end up? We have not seen any of the results. We've been
living in bunkers, so we actually do not know who wins this race. But my guess is going to be Rylan first, Manuel second. Angel second, Manuel third. If Angel can hold him off on the third lap, that's the big thing. Is Manuel runs very strong through all 3 laps. Can Angel keep it together for all 3?
I'm going Rylan, Manuel, Leon. I think the athletes from Mexico are going to go a little bit too fast at the beginning, and we saw them fade a little bit during the opening rounds. That kind of happened at the 3K when VJ ended up winning the Pan American Championship, so my gut is telling me the same thing will happen. Although maybe they're a little more patient this time, but we'll see. Oh, Angel making a move.
Doesn't look like it. There's Angel going right for it. Now, one thing I got to say is I've seen Angel beat some of the men in this sport in a beast race in Breckenridge. I know how good he can be sustaining output. But we know the same thing about Rylan. We know the same thing about a lot of these guys. And so I just think the question is going to be, it's not about fitness for Angel. It's going to be about, can he be disciplined enough to hold back early?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of pride as well. I remember speaking with some of the athletes when they announced that they'd be adding Mexico as a stop to the U.S. Series, especially last year in Puebla, when that was the first time that we went down there for the National Series. Just the pride of having someone from your home country ending up on the podium or potentially winning it against all the best competition from the U.S. and Europe. It meant a lot to them. So I think that you're going to see somebody from Mexico really want to go for the win. Oh, we just saw someone fall off. Sandbag penalty.
Sandbag carry. Tough penalty.
Oh man, I didn't catch who it was.
Now, one big thing here is Quintero. He was slow through that twister obstacle, and that is going to be a problem for him, having to do it 3 times. He's
3.
The last one out of it, and he's going to have to run harder than everybody else every single time.
How good is this?
Now,
you got 5 people
him,
within 1 second.
Look how aggressively he runs, though. He moves to get to that obstacle first. He's so aggressive, and then that roll technique, so strong right here. I don't know why everyone isn't rolling.
Hobie style right there. Look at that.
Very smooth.
He went from 5th to 1st in 15 seconds. Yeah.
His ability to make up time on that obstacle will offset what he loses on Twister, and his ability to just run that flat ground with it smoothly is really unmatched, even by Eric Rylan.
And he gets first dibs at, he doesn't have to stop. And look at right there, you've got Eugenio. He has to wait for Rylan to pick up his bags. Manuel does as well. Angel got there first. He got to go right into it. Ciro, he's lost 5-10 seconds, just waiting on multiple people ahead of him. So, yeah. So that could have been strategy remember, by Angel.
It's a 3-lap course, guys. Like, this first lap doesn't matter that much. And you'll see guys that will overwork that first lap, and then they're just going to bleed time. They are going to bleed time badly. Leon is pushing.
Leon moving into the lead.
Running this so hard. And my fear for him is just, can you produce at this level for 3 lengths? Like, when you lead, when you're a guy like Leon, you want to lead. It gives you wings on your feet, but it's a long way to the finish still.
See, I think that Leon is doing the right thing right now. He just ended up on the podium at OCR Worlds. He's making the people behind him run a little bit harder to catch up because they know Leon is as obstacle proficient as anybody. You've got the rig coming up. He's a really good low crawler. Now you're going to crawl. Wow, never mind. Look at the best climber right there, Angel.
That technique difference of not using his hands at all from Angel. Almost like he's been out here practicing that obstacle this week.
I mean, Angel, you've raced him a lot more than I have. Is he known as one of the better obstaclers and movers? I mean, everything that I've seen on camera throughout the years, he looks like he stepped up his game, is what I was going to say. Like, I don't remember him being this quick on certain things.
Well, I think he figured out the tension on that up and down. He's figured out the tension on that cargo net where he can actually just run it with no hands, and that does give him an advantage there. On the bear crawl portion of it on the top, Leon was faster. But on the up and the down, Angel was faster.
Yeah. And on the up, Leon got there first. He put his weight into it, so it got a little tighter for Angel to climb it. That ends up happening often, where the second person gets the better end of the deal.
So my concern for Leon is not that he's not capable. It's simply that Angel has proven to me over the years that he has the ability to win these long races, that his engine doesn't die. His engine travels with him. It just keeps going. You know, we've seen Manuel close strong. We know what Ryland can do over a 3-lap course. Leon's the one where I'm like, I find he's more of a contender on some of the shorter events, and this is a short event, but 3 laps, a 1-lap 3K course, for example, this is very, very different.
I still feel that after it being completely out of his element, like Leon expected to end up on the OCR World 3K podium, to end up on the 15K mountain at 9,000 feet elevation podium, I think that was a major confidence boost for him. And I think that he knows he can run with anybody. So I think he's more in his element on a flat, fast 3K. He's done that at some of the European championships where he's won in the past. They're flat, they're fast, they're obstacle dense. I think that this is what he's been dreaming of, and that's why he stuck around in the U.S. for this final race, or in North America.
Others were still behind. Amazing.
And honestly, this laser pistol is going to come into play. The guys who can get it without penalty.
Oh my God, always crossing the line. Congratulations.
So here's lap 1 completed. Angel Quintero with a small lead over Leon Kofed. And this time, no turning left. They just keep on going. Leon checks his splits. 6:37. They're across.
They were like
line
8 flat
already.
before.
I don't know how accurate the times were last time, because
I'm thinking
I thought
if
we
they
looked
were
at around 7 minutes last time as well.
I thought Ciro crossed the line like 7 flat. We made a comment on that. So I think that could have been, you know, adding the 2 heats together. Oh, man.
And here the aggression picks up on that running. So that's Ryland Shadegg closing in as well on Leon. So this is what I was saying before. Not that Leon isn't incredibly talented, but did he overextend a little bit on that opening lap? Because you can't win a race on the first lap, but you can lose it.
I think that was Eugenio who went by him, and I mentioned earlier that he was like a 150 or a 151 800 runner. You just saw that top end. He just has that extra gear right there, and VJ talked about it when he went to Mexico last year. He's just got speed.
Yeah, most of these guys are training a lot more at like threshold efforts. They don't necessarily have the ability to drop into the 55s for a quarter.
He's getting on.
It's not male or female.
Yeah, one thing I don't know if you remember in the Puebla race last year, a lot of the times the Mexican athletes would walk the last 5 or 6 steps heading into an obstacle. Today they are just going into it, it seems. So I think that they've, you know, adjusted their strategy a little bit versus what we saw last time. I know like Mark Gaudet and Logan and some of the other athletes from the US who went down there, they were very surprised at the style that the athletes from Mexico ended up racing in. But today we're seeing that wasn't a fluke. They're in the top 2 spots right now against some world-class talent.
Well, they're physically gifted. Like, you have so many physically gifted runners down there, and a lot of this system comes down to skill work, skill proficiency, you know, just getting the reps. But right now, the one who's looking like he's struggling is actually Ryland Shadegg.
And we saw Ciro Perez just basically pass Ryland. So Ryland might be in 5th place by the time we see him again.
He might be in a little bit of trouble, and it just might just be the layout that they have for this particular course. It really suits a guy like Angel Quintero right now. And, like, look at that stride. He's so light. He's got so much foot-to-ground power that it just makes it look so easy.
Yeah, he's a very fluid runner right there. And like I mentioned earlier on in the show, there's a reason he's had a podium for 11 straight years. That's unheard of, that type of longevity in the sport. Let's see how he does in this second double sandbag carry. You've done some double sandbags with him. He's done Palmerton. He's done the big races with them plenty of times. He's finished 6th in Tahoe. Yeah. Very capable. Just get him on your shoulder, don't put it down.
it's not about necessarily being the fastest in the double sandbag carry. It's about getting into it quickly, not wasting energy on it, and coming out of it with as little damage as possible. Because you're essentially doing two things. You're minimizing the damage you're taking from a time perspective and minimizing the damage your body's taking so that you can continue to run the way that you want to run.
Yeah, let's get a split. So there's about a 15-second gap between Eugenio and Leon for second to third. We saw Rylan have to wait a little bit behind Ciro. So I've got to say I'm a little surprised. Maybe Rylan's saving something in the tank. He was conservative in Big Bear when he ended up getting the win. So I wouldn't be surprised if he might be saving something for the final sandbag on this last lap.
Manuel is very far back too, and that what are the scenarios for like a Rylan finishing third and Manuel finishing fifth? How does that affect the points? We're gonna have to do some math on this.
If that happens, Manuel wins the series.
So Rylan
hit
must
708, and Rylan would have, just over 660.
So we need a Rylan win in order for him to win the series. That's the only possibility.
Correct. If Manuel gets fourth and Rylan gets second, Manuel's still your winner. So yeah, Rylan, if he wants that $5,000,
he's right there now. So Leon has managed to hold off Shadeg, but he looks like he's straining a little harder in that second round. He's getting back to his running. He's still looking pretty fluid. But here's your leader on the day, Angel Quintero.
By a mile.
I said before, he's going to have a good day. He's going to be a factor. I was not anticipating him just going out and wiping the whole field out.
Yeah, it's super impressive. I honestly expected him to go out a little fast and just try to go for the win, and we saw that last year in Puebla when he did that. And I think he was like the 7th or 8th fastest athlete from Mexico that race because he went out too fast today. If you could place bets right now until the finish, do you have Angel winning? I think it's going to be hard to catch him.
It's going to be very hard to catch him. One of the problems is everybody else seems to be fighting each other instead of working together. And so when you're battling, you're just using so much energy going back and forth, surging past each other, and he's just going to time trial this thing.
No one else is even under. Okay, Eugenio is just exiting the underwater fence. Looks like Leon got through that a lot smoother.
Yeah, Leon, that's where he made a nice move. He looked like he was fading in the previous lap and then charged past everybody except for Angel in the barbed wire as well. So the two of them were easily the most efficient through that obstacle.
Oh, wow. Okay, Eugenio's a lot closer than I expected. Getting on that because...
It's just the two of these, the local Mexican athletes, absolutely laying it down.
1, 2, 3 right now.
The rest of the field. Yeah. And again, this comes down, these guys are incredible athletes, great runners, but they've started to figure out the skill side of this game.
Now, Ciro, he made a podium in his first 10 Spartan races, and he lost his first ever one earlier this year, and he finished about 10th or so in Palmerton as well. So I thought it wasn't the beginning of the end, but I thought that maybe, the field had caught up to him at that point. But he started his career with 10 straight. That's the most, arguably, in Spartan history. There's a reason he's in third place right now.
More than Hobie Call?
Hobie had Killington. He had that 10th place bad one.
We all get one bad one. Wow, is this a new leader?
So he looks like he thinks there's no more laps. Oh my God.
He is sprinting right now. But the running talent down here, man, is just insane. Look at that stride, the turnover, the cadence, how open and smooth it is. He's getting that good knee lift. He's getting that good extension.
I'm glad I'm not rabbiting this right now because this would be so painful.
He's running so fast.
He does not look like he's 14 minutes into a race that's just beating everyone up. Wow, this is... And he's not even winning. He's in third place.
It looks like he's on a track. Nope. At this point, I'm wondering if he sees the lead over at the...
Did we miss Angel and Eugenio? No. That's Rylan with the strap.
That's Rylan and Leon. And they're sitting in 4th and 5th, I believe. Here's Angel.
Okay, we're at Twister. Angel's still in the lead, but if he was running faster than Ciro right there, that's just
there's no way he was running that
mind-boggling.
fast. That was the fastest that we've seen anybody move at any point in this race. So Ciro is rolling right now.
I don't remember a race where an athlete looked like they were moving that fast.
Wow. Here you go, second place.
Eugenio. He got second place in Puebla last year.
So he is still close. I mean, you're looking at maybe 20 seconds back. So this is Angel's race as long as he makes no mistakes. But there could be a charge for that second, third position. And for Rylan, this is a tough way to lose the series.
And Angel was the quickest roller. Oh, yeah, you can see him right there. He's basically keeping up with the ATV.
It's unbelievable. Now, look at these guys somehow catching all the way back up. And this just goes back to what we talked about with obstacle proficiency. One man is working so much harder than the other two, running so hard, and then lead every single time they get to an obstacle again. I mean, the difference in the speed that these guys are moving is actually unbelievable.
Yeah, no problem on Angel lifting that up. He's got a secure in his back. I think he knows he's got it at this point. 5 left after this. And he'll have that big advantage of looking when he does that hairpin turn, and he knows how far of a gap. He can start counting at that point, and I don't think he's going to step off the accelerator at all, but he has that advantage of knowing they have to do this much extra work to catch me, and I've got a little bit of wiggle room.
Well, you think about it. He's had 2.5 laps to build this lead. They'd have to make it up in half a lap. It would require not just a great finish, but for him to explode.
He did about 6.5-minute laps for the first two, so he's going to finish 19.5 to 20 minutes. He's got 3 minutes left in the pain cave, and then he's got $1,500. So I think that Angel has this thing.
Oh, absolutely.
Eugenio in second
I think
comfortably.
that's pretty clear.
Let's see who's in third. Ciro.
That cluster, that same cluster.
Leon's got to move.
Did Rylan
wants
clap?
that third place.
Did we see Rylan? Wow, look at that
see
kick.
him there. Oh, yeah. Angel wants this. Now, Angel finished second in Big Bear and second in Breckenridge, as you mentioned, in the U.S. National Series in the past. He has never won a U.S. one. He's won a ton of them in Mexico. Look at that. You're just walking up the thing. Take note if you're an athlete.
Yeah. Well, it all depends on how tight they pull that cargo net. You know, I just ran the race in the Washington, D.C. race, and it was so slack that you could barely climb it at all. So if it's tense, you can literally run it. You can use your legs much more. If it's slack, you got to go much more with the arms.
We've seen athletes like Tyler Veerman, climb up it like Spider-Man in the past, just super quick and Big Bear. And Angel's giving him a run for his money in terms of fastest cargo net climber that I've seen. So he's got about 1.5 minutes. He's got the low crawl, a wall, a rig, and then the laser pistol. Step over the finish line and take that first place prize.
Oh, Angel Quintero just moving urgently, trying to keep those hands dry, but they're soaked. There's like algae growing in there.
I know. I was like, the color of that is just interesting.
Bright green nuclear waste that they're crawling through over here. And here you go, Angel Quintero on home
got to
soil,
make it through this
making
rig.
his move for home.
Oh, he's got energy.
Very confident jumping up to
he
that
did
bar.
not need to do that, but he wanted to.
He looks very at home with these the monkey swing style, the Tarzan swing. In and out, and nothing left to fail except for the laser pistol now. He finishes that, and this man is going to be your winner today. As Angel Quintero makes his way into the final obstacle of his race, the laser pistol. here on Mexican soil. This is the greatest Mexican Spartan racer of all time. He's been doing this since 2013. Angel Quintero is going to be your winner today on the 4th race Spartan North American Elite 3K Series. Winning in Mexico, did it for his country.
By a landslide. Angel has almost 40 wins in his Spartan career. This is by far the most meaningful to him, I think.
Wow. And I just want to point out, everybody at home, this is how you know that Jack and I did not know the results prior to this race.
We went in blind. Stayed off social media. But we've got a battle. Let's get this 3rd place battle, 2nd place right here. Oh, Leon.
Leon's making a move.
Leon Ancero, it's going to come down to the pistol. I think Eugenio, we have not seen him, but he likely finished 2nd.
Does Leon have any juice left? Look at the difference in how fast they move. Look at the speed
Listen
difference.
to the crowd also. Eugenio, 2nd place. He just clinched it. But the real battle, congrats to Eugenio, but the real battle right here. Who's going to shoot faster?
Wow.
Cero makes the move.
Shoot fast, and then it's like this tiny little sprint. Wow, Leon Kofed!
Oh my God.
Brilliant shooting at the laser pistol, and Leon Kofed stealing 3rd place. He hit that so
was a
quickly.
battle.
Wow, what he had right there. And again, this comes down to one man ran harder, ran faster. One man was just smooth and completed everything he needed to. Look at that pain face from Leon Kofed. So proud of that guy.
Back-to-back 3rd places at major races.
Skill practice is so important in this sport. You cannot get by with just fitness and athleticism. And here's Rylan Shadegg coming through in 5th place. That's his 3rd race in the last 7 days. So credit to him.
A lot of flights, a lot of everything.
It's very hard to travel that much and keep the body ready to go, to race that much and travel that much and feel yourself.
Leon, what a comeback to get 3rd. How do you feel?
Started hard.
Smile in right there on camera.
Finished hard.
Amazing.
I feel good. I feel like I really had to dig deep.
Yeah.
Congratulations, everyone. That course, I'm acclimated. I'm in a really good fitness right now.
Yeah.
And I looked at the names who came and I was like, this will be tough. It was tough, but I did it.
Congratulations, Neil. Well done. Great 3rd place.
Por favor, recuerden, Spartans, al concluir su carrera, hay que devolver el chip, de favor.
Congratulations, dude. Well done. 2nd.
Aquí al cruzar su carrera, hay que devolver el chip, de favor. Aquí en la de registro.
Muy bien.
Pero aquí vienen llegando nuestros Spartans.
Look at this men's podium. All international, no Americans on the podium. 2 Mexican
smiles.
athletes. 1 Danish.
Almost had the Mexican sweep, but Leon, looking like a trained sniper, just finishing right there.
He's just come through right now. I don't know.
I don't think I won.
Okay.
No, you're correct, Rylan.
Manuel
I just
knows
did the
it.
math.
He knows it.
Manuel getting 6th place. I gave him the math ahead of time. I was like, as long as Rylan doesn't win, you're good. So Manuel will end up with 708 points. It won't change.
Yeah.
And Rylan ends up 2nd place. Tyler Rearman in 3rd. So 5,000, 2,500, 1,000 for those 3.
I'm so happy! Because I win this fucking championships! Yeah, man!
Congratulations.
Guy didn't even
He
need to
deserves it.
flight over here. Could have saved the money, but he came over and went to fight anyway. So
He got an OCR Worlds podium last week, so I think it was worth the trip.
worth the trip.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, for
Here's your
Manuel
men's series
Defoe,
champion.
Manuel Defoe, if you're thinking of athletes who would have won the series at the start of the year, like an athlete from Europe coming over for that, it's so impressive what he's done.
It's amazing. It's incredible. And he's just been consistent, and he's proven his ability to just run on any terrain, any style course. He's worked hard. He's put in the time and the effort to adjust to all that travel. Hey, now you reap the reward. Enjoy it, Manuel.
Do you want to know one of the craziest things about him? He's 43 years old. His first elite podium was in 2021 at the Morzine Super when he was 41 years old. He's been racing OCR since 2016. He went 5 years into his career without getting a podium, and now he's your National Series 3K champion at the age of 43. It's incredible what he's done.
Good. Angel, Concha. Hey, congratulations. Well done, dude. Muy bien. Muy bien.
Well, we got to bring the Americans back into this because the Americans have not delivered in this 3K series the way we hoped that they would. Maybe partially due to participation, but the international fields came to bring it. They brought it today. They brought it through this whole series. Your series champion, Manuel Defoe. Today's winner and second place finishers, Angel Quintero.
Well, I will
Genio.
say, VJ, the Americans, you did have VJ winning Palm Beach and the Pan American champs. You had Rylan and Big Bear. You had Ryan Kempson. So you did have the winners prior to this being
Miracle.
all from the U.S. Yeah, from the men's side. Yeah, but yeah, I agree. It's honestly though, watching this race today, look who Angel beat and look how comfortably he did it. Even if VJ showed up, Kempson showed up, it would have been a battle till the end. I don't think that he would have won by as much, but it was not a walk in the park. Angel was ready to throw down with anybody. Well-earned victory.
We've always said that Angel Quintero has that elite level of talent. He hasn't had the health and the consistency as much as a couple of the other guys, but his top end's always been there. Where, when you look at the big players and Angel's in the race, you're like, oh, he could beat all those guys. Like, that's always been the case with Angel. But today it all came to... And now we're looking at our women's final lineup right here. So Ida, of course, on your right. Chris Rogloski on the left. Yana Popova. Ali Tippett. Yeah.
All right, so the four of them. It looks like we're only having the four. We have 2 U.S. athletes, 2 from Europe, none from Mexico. On the men's side, we almost had a Mexican sweep. We had it for 99% of the race, and then Leon made sure Europe got represented.
The women are off, and right away, Ida right to the front. Look how powerful that stride looks.
She's looking like Ciro. Or more like Ciro's looking like Ida. If I had to bet,
and so it's
looking at how fast Ida was running in the final, and right now, this is her race to lose. Like, she is going to create a gap, in my opinion. I don't think it's going to be close.
And like, I'm looking at Yanka's stride, and that leg with the brace is like, there's a clear hitch in that stride.
It's labored. She doesn't have the kickback on her left leg.
Yeah, that's really, really tough to see. For her, the hope is that she can put together a decent enough run that she can hold on to a podium spot. But from the looks of things, my prediction would be Ida's going to take this thing easily, and the battle's going to be second, third. I look at Chris for second, and I think Tippett will end up taking third. I don't know if Yanka's knee is going to hold up for this thing.
Well, do you want me to just get this out of the way? Mathematically, there is no way that Chris cannot win this overall series. So she's going to take $5,000 home because Ida, even if she wins, Chris, the worst that she can get is 4th place right here. That would give Chris 780 points and 772 for Ida. So we already know the outcome at this point. But the real battle is the individual race. Yeah.
By making the final, Chris Rogloski already won the series. She already did the work she needed to do. Now everything else is gravy. But she could bring home a little more money if she finishes better.
Now, Ali Tippett, if Ali ends up winning this race and beats Ida, she will actually win the overall series, or I guess second place in the series with Chris winning it. So you do have a little bit of, variability right there if Ali can pull off the win. And Yanka would need second place and Ida to finish third in order for her to end up in the top 3 overall in the series. So Still have some battles to have for the rest of the race, but Chris has the overall win locked up. Spoiler alert.
Could have kept it a surprise, Jack. Could have
couldn't
left
help-
them on
I
the edge of
couldn't
their
help it.
seats, you know?
Yeah. Hey, the
Well, let's just
actual
watch to
race,
see
we don't
who's
know
going to win
what's
this
gonna
race. How about that?
happen.
Yeah, we don't know.
Exactly.
Notice everyone's rolling now, for the most part. It's the soft earth, and it's not just like the roll, crawl. It's straight roll. When you have that grass, you have the ability to do that without destroying your body. You do that over a rubble field, it's a whole other story.
Yeah. Placement of the barbed wire matters a ton. You didn't see any athlete's hair get caught up in there. Wow, Ida is just dominating. So she picked it up at 3:11.
Picked up at 3:11. So we're like a 10-second lead right about here. 10, 11,
No, 15 by the time they get moving.
13. Yeah, here you go. That was a slow pickup by Chris Rogloski. Look at this terrain. Like, look at the grass. It's grass terrain for the most part, but it's so low and it's not particularly uneven. You can really actually dig in and get return off your stride. Unlike, say, like a traditional cross-country course where the grass might be like a little higher and you're losing a lot. This is fast terrain.
It's manicured. It's. I mean, the fact that we saw Ciro running as fast as he did, you know that this is a
crazy.
quick surface. I'm seeing like
Man
a
was
few
working
divots
very
here and
hard.
there. I don't. Yeah, but you can see some like tire tracks. But overall, it looks pretty firm. Steve told me that for athletes from the U.S. who've raced in Las Vegas or Arizona, it's a similar terrain type as this for this particular part of Mexico.
I haven't run those. I've run one in Las Vegas. I ran a Laughlin, Nevada race, and it was like that.
I was
really,
in that one with
really
you.
fast. Oh, that's right. That's
Beat
right. I
up
took
from
it to
that
you,
combine.
Jack.
Well, you didn't do the combine, so yeah.
It's true. It's true. I
think Botras ended up taking the win there.
Yeah. Botras
Botras
unbelievable that day.
He got it, yeah. Regardless, but even more unbelievable today is Ida just not moving as quick as Angel on this Kargan on the Phoenicians Pass, but she has such a commanding lead at this point. Over under a minute for the win at this point. I think she's going to win at this point.
Yeah, I mean, she just looks extremely comfortable staying within her own, almost like she's not even racing, like she's just going out for a training run. And that's the look you want. When you're in the lead and you look like you're just training, that's a sign that you're going to be almost impossible to beat.
I can assure you she's racing. I guarantee you this doesn't feel good. But the comfort level, that's what you're referring to.
Of course. It's not about how she feels, it's what she presents, right? It's taking all of that feeling and disguising it and showing nothing but strength to those around you and to yourself.
I've got to say, I do like how they added that little water pit after, just to get your shoes a little bit wet, because there's no real water crossing in this course. You get in and out of that swim real quick, but it does force you to change your turnover. Maybe you get a little bit muddier right here. Obviously, the athletes are going to skirt to the side of it for the most part, but it is a little nice throw in there, even if it's only about 5 seconds.
So she got her recovery right there by really easing into this obstacle. Aquatic multi-rig. I love the extra aquatic title.
I mean, imagine if they just had a multi-rig solely in the water. I don't think that would be as good. But
not so good.
Just be swimming.
Not so good. And one thing of note is, like, she is tall. She has to hold her feet up, because if she did dip a toe in that water, for example, that's technically considered a fail.
Yeah,
if it were above ground and the toe touched the ground, it can be. Yeah. On some obstacles. Obstacles it's an advantage, some it's a disadvantage. It all evens out.
So we're going to get a split right here. We mentioned Angel had a commanding lead at 6:34 into this first lap. Ida will probably be about 7:10 when she crosses the line, so she's about 35 seconds slower than the lead man. But Angel had like a 10 to 15 second gap at that point. So Ida's running fantastic right now.
She looks amazing right now. And here's Ali Tippett's finishing up the multi-rig herself. Chris Rogloski somewhere directly between those two.
All right, Chris just
There
finished
she
shoots
is.
the laser pistol. So about a
So you're looking at
20-second
about
lead is what
25
Ida will have.
seconds.
Yeah.
25. Yeah, 25 seconds. This is significant. I mean, you're talking about that's already that much, and that's consistent with where they were in the previous qualifier. About a 25-second gap.
Yeah, Chris has such a unique running style. You can just tell silhouette-wise, it's like that's Chris Rogloski running. Good arm pump, kind of like that heel striking that you were mentioning right earlier.
Very heel strikey. And it works really well over particularly long distances. But it's hard to run that next gear of speed with that stride. You need to be a little bit more forward leaning, off the forefoot, bouncier, more knee drive, more extension.
Yeah, I believe Chris is going to be doing World's Toughest Mudder again next month. So about 4 weeks from now, she'll be doing another 100-miler. Imagine that. And then DecaFit World Champs, or Deca World Champs, I'm pretty sure she qualified for all 3 events. So she's got a busy season coming up at the end of the year.
Now, if you were to like analyze the stride, look at Ida right now and the difference, if we can get a full shot of her. The way her feet strike the ground, the angle of her knee bend at that strike is she's a little bit more forward. Her knees are pressing backward as they hit the ground. They're driving down. She's driving her feet back.
Good force production.
Chris runs with her feet. Yeah, Chris runs with her feet a little bit more out in front of her as she's striking the ground.
Hey, whatever they're both doing works at the end of the day. No two runners are alike.
Very, very, no, yeah, absolutely. And what Chris has done, what her stride is extremely efficient for the particularly long distances, for anything that gets real grindy and nasty.
Yeah, Chris has had a lot of success, obviously, in the ultra distances, but even like Big Bear Super or some of the other beast races. She was on the podium in Mexico last year. I think she was in second place in Puebla when they came here. So yeah, the longer the better for Chris, but she's so versatile. It doesn't matter, short, long, she can do it all, and that's the reason why she's sitting in second place, about 30 seconds behind arguably the greatest 3K racer on the planet right now.
I think Nicole Miracle would like to have a word, but
I said arguably.
Yes.
She did beat Nicole in a 3K a month ago in Belgium. So
she did.
Yeah. It's a shame we didn't get to see them all at OCR Worlds.
Yeah,
Ida
looks
looks
something
so
special.
comfortable there.
There's no question. She hides her pain extremely well too. You see a lot of athletes
does Chris.
show it. You see their pain. Yes, Chris does as
Yeah,
well, with a smile. That Eliud Kipchoge
Yeah.
smile.
Yeah, it's weird. Yeah, I think that's a really good description. Like Chris absolutely hides her pain with a smile. Ida might not be smiling as much. No one smiles as much as Chris, but she never looks like she's just going to a dark place during the race.
No, she's smooth. She stays smooth. I would say it kind of reminds me of how Lindsay Webster never really looks like she's in terrible pain, even though I'm sure she's in tremendous pain through a lot of it. She hides her pain really, really well. They just stay stoic. And it's an art, it's a skill, it's something that has to be practiced to be able to disguise your pain and kind of live in it. And, when I said that Kipchoge smile, what I was referring to is Eliud Kipchoge's on record of saying, like, you can tell I'm hurting because I'm smiling more. Like, when it hurts, I smile more. And I think that's very much what it looks like when you watch Chris Rogloski race.
Couldn't have said it better. Yep. So when Chris ended up picking up the double sandbag, Ida was already turning around at the hairpin turn at the end. So she has one full length. So essentially half the sandbag carry at this point. I can't see a way that she ends up falling off any of these obstacles, given her obstacle proficiency. And coming in third right here, potentially with her second podium of the national series, Ali Tippett. She got second in Big Bear, sixth in Palmerton. What a year. What a transformation of an athlete she's had this year.
Ooh, a little slip.
Spoke too soon.
No, but I think you're right. Like you're seeing the emergence of some athletes, like they're leveling up. I talked about Ali Tippett's leveling up before. Ida's just been at this level. She's always been at this level. She's been winning championships for how many years? When did she win her first OCR World Championship?
I think she has 6 OCR Worlds individual podiums dating back, and oh wow, almost this is giving her a little bit of a challenge actually. This is the second time she's
dating back to when, Jack?
Safer. I believe it was 2018 when she got her first one. I might be mistaken. She did age group for a couple of years early on, believe it or not. So to all the athletes out there, I already mentioned Manuel Defoe taking 5 years to get his first podium, and really making his name for himself in his early 40s, and Ida starting in age group. You had athletes like Annie Doobie also starting in age group. For all the age groupers watching out there, put in the work. You never know where it'll turn out.
You're absolutely right. And here's Ida finishing up lap number 2. She's headed into that aquatic multi-rig.
Now you saw her put her hands over her head right there. Like she was just in the water. I don't know. It seems a little weird to do that to try to keep them dry when you were just literally submerged right before that.
Just get them
maybe
no
more
mental. Water, I think is what she's thinking. Yeah. It's an old Ryan Atkins move. I feel like he was the first person that I ever saw do this. Just really, really emphasizing keeping the hands above the head. But
yeah. So Ida was 7:10 on her first lap. If she crosses the line in 14:20 heading into her third and final lap, she'll have run an even split. It looks like she slowed down a little bit. She might get the laser pistol pretty quick, but I don't think that even split at this point. She might be about 15 seconds slower this lap. Struggling a little bit. I still think she has enough of a margin, as we see Chris just getting onto the multi-rig at this point.
Pretty big gap. You're looking at about a minute now. She's been consistently stretching that out.
So Ida went 7:10 and then about 7:40. So she was about 30 seconds slower on the second lap. Sometimes you need to do that to your opponents, though. Make them hurt a little bit more and see if they can hang on. And you build a big enough buffer at that point if you have the fitness to hang on for the win. But she's obviously bleeding time a little bit, but I think she has a comfortable enough margin right here where she likely knows heading into this last lap it's her race to lose. All right, a few seconds faster than
work. Yeah. And, the thing is, it would take her being faster through everything to beat Ida today, just based on the way Ida is running, how smooth she looks, the speed she's moving with. And Chris has been doing so much ultra work lately. It's hard to tap into that raw speed when you're doing a ton of miles, when you're running ultras. It's just your body gets used to running at a slower tempo.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting to see what Chris does the rest of the year and, the rest of her career, honestly, because you see so many athletes trying everything. And I think that's part of the reason she has success. She's not specializing. She's having fun out there trying new things. But as the sport develops, it'll be interesting to see if she can keep doing that and still have success at every single distance, or if she might need to put a little bit more focus. Like we've seen her win a High Rocks World Championship and a World's Toughest Mudder in the same year. It's like crazy what type of range she has, but we've seen the women's side of the sport definitely pick up over the past couple of years. So it'll be interesting to see how she might have to change her tactics.
And I would also argue that she has become better over the last few years than she won.
Absolutely.
Than she was when she won like High Rocks World Championships. I think she's a better overall athlete. I think she's faster now. And yet the women's field has gotten so much deeper, I would say it will be harder for her.
Yeah, Chris in the 15K at Stratton, not this past year, but in 2022, she was only like a minute and a half behind Lindsay for the 15K. And Lindsay just won the 15K by 10 minutes over Nicole this past year. So Pete Chris is dangerous.
Yes, Pete Chris is very dangerous. And Nicole, I think, is still a ways away from being her best self. It's exciting to see, with a year of health under her belt, what she'll be able to do. I think the sport is in a better place when you have a healthy Nicole Miracle up near the top. I mean, obviously, you've got Ida, you've got Chris. The women's sport, the women's field is in a really good place, and it's exciting to see that grow.
And if we're talking about Nicole, just fast forwarding a race, the next time we're going to see athletes in the 3K is going to be the Abu Dhabi 3K World Championship. And Nicole already stated that she's going to be going there. I know Ida's going to be going there. Chris travels everywhere.
Yeah.
I'm assuming she'll make the trip.
Let's go.
I hope Lindsay does. Like, we're going to see some names, the best of the best in the sport, all thrown down in the desert.
Ida's making her way into her final sandbag carry. This is lap 3. She's been so consistent today. She's never looked like she was in distress.
Not at all. And she's still moving really well. You saw the same thing with Angel on the men's side heading in this the final double sandbag carry. There was never any doubt that he was going to drop it or slow down, and Ida's cruising right there. She does have a little bit of a grimace on her face right now. I'm sure 18 plus minutes into this race, you're not feeling good.
She hasn't looked back, and that's a really good sign. Like, when you see a leader looking back, part of that is because they're concerned. Hey, I'm hurting. Like, maybe how much do I have left to give? You know, how hard am I going to have to work? Like, if you're thinking about how hard you have to work for the finish, that's a bad sign. She is not looking back. She's just head down and working, and that tells you she's feeling really good.
Yeah, it looks like Ida's adjusting it a little bit early on in this carry, this third and final carry. She had really good overhead mobility right there, just kind of one arm with the two of them. But now she's kind of adjusted the grip a little bit. I wonder if she kind of rushed to put them on her shoulders then. And Chris, who she won Big Bear because she was such a good double sandbag carrier. No problem here, but we saw Ida struggle. That's the reason she ended up finishing in third in Big Bear, because the double sandbags just got the best of her. We saw it happen to Allie Tippett as well, who was just appearing on camera, where Allie ended up breaking a little bit, and then she just recovered and ended up finishing in second during that race with the double sandbag. I think the weights are about 20 pounds lighter today. It was 80 pounds and 120 pounds for the women and men. Today it's 60 and 90. So I think that may play a little bit of a difference versus the heavier weights that we saw earlier in the year.
And it's flat. Flat is always, the big game changer on carries. It was pretty flat in Palmerton too, but if you look back at like Big Bear, the impact that double carry had of being like uphill and heavy, I think it can be one or the other. It's hard to make it both and have it not completely change the race.
And they often, if it is flat, they'll often put it through like a muddy section or, hop over a couple logs, just throw in some footing terrain obstacle there just to mix things up. But yeah, this is just an out and back on the flat. But, it wears you down. It breaks down your core, and, it didn't have the impact that it does on a mountain course. But, I'm glad to see a double sandbag versus a regular single one.
So the arms are going to go up, but if you think about it, what we have is her arms got wet from basically like the middle of the forearm, elbow, shoulder. That all got wet. And so if she does hold her arms up like this, it's going to drip off down, not towards her hands. So theoretically...
Well, if she's kicking like that and splashing everywhere, I don't think it's helping. Yeah.
Well, theoretically, she's keeping her hands a little bit drier, letting some of that water run down off her elbows instead of off her fingertips.
Yep, so Ida, who has some of the best grip on the planet, either gender and OCR, all that she has is this multi-rig, and the title of this race is hers. As we mentioned, the overall series.
No chances taken just now. She went and took that dirt, wiped it on the hands, dry them off a little bit. She's going to be extremely cautious because there's a lot of money at stake on this rig right here.
Absolutely. Pays for the trip back to Europe and then some. Makes sure you stay in America cheaper.
And
we went out to pizza together, so I know she spent some money on food. Yeah.
She does have to eat. She knows she's got it in the bag now. A little celebration out of her. Chris Rogloski giving chase right now. But if we can get eyes back on Ida with Soda Steensgaard, of Denmark. 2 Danes making it to the podium today. Your women's winner here in race 4 of the Spartan North American Elite 3K Series. Ida's going to take it, and look at the smile. She's thrilled. Worth the trip, huh? Congratulations.
Fantastic finish. That last lap was about 8 minutes, 7:40 for the one beforehand. So, you know, coasted it in. Nice, comfortable victory. I think she's going to win by about a minute over Chris, it looks like. And $1,500 to her name after this race.
And now you see how she felt.
Did you see that headband right there? She has the number 1 on it. I think they gave her the right one.
Yeah. They gave her the right one, that's for sure, Jack. And Chris Rogloski is going to close this thing out. She's making her way into the aquatic multi-rig. This is a pretty sizable gap. And then she's got a hefty lead as well. Notice the grip. She's got the reverse grip going on it. She's not doing the side shimmy.
Yeah, Chris, usually she likes swinging a lot more than doing a lockout grip. You'll see athletes like Nicole Miracle and Lindsay kind of get their elbows up 90 degrees to lock out. Chris, she has really good shoulder mobility and definitely swings a lot more on obstacles right there, even if it's just one hand at a time.
Now here's Chris Rogloski coming into her final obstacle, the laser pistol, to take home 2nd place, but also to finalize, put her stamp on this series as your 2023 Spartan North American Elite 3K female champion. Chris Rogloski, amazing year from her. Just continues to do things that blow people's minds.
Yep. Chris has a 1-2-2 this year. She got 1st in Big Bear, 2nd in Palmerton behind Lindsay, 2nd today behind Ida. Fantastic year. You know, whatever distance it is, whenever Chris Rogloski steps on the line, you should probably put her on the podium these days.
It's hard to argue with you on that one.
Yep.
This is
So
a cool
Chris will
shot.
end up
Love the light behind that cloud.
Yeah, it started getting a little bit darker. You saw that when Chris finished.
Tippett's closing this thing out. Another podium for her 2nd of the series.
Yeah, Allie has a 2nd place in Big Bear, 6th place in Palmerton, and improved today to 3rd place. So she's going to finish the year with 692 points. David, you know how I ruined the how things are going to finish for the overall points? I did not for 3rd place in the series. Simply by, if Janka finishes, which I'm assuming she does, she'll actually finish 4 points ahead of Allie Tippett's for 3rd place. Allie's walking away with 692, Janka with 696. So congrats on the individual podium. You're 2nd of the series. Janka, despite finishing 4th, will get the overall podium for the series. But what a year for Allie.
Great year for Allie Tippett, and now here's Janka Popova just wrapping up as well. And it's a hard way to finish this injured, but making the trip worth it by coming across the line here in 4th and securing that 3rd place finish for the series, like you mentioned. That is still a big deal. She wouldn't have been able to pull that off without making this trip. Good shots, too. Janka Popova.
Yep, by showing up, Janka replaced her 5th place finish from Palmerton with a 4th place today, and that is the reason that she is 3rd place overall in the series. So the trip was necessary if she wanted to get that series podium. So it's an all blonde podium for the women's field.
We got 2 Americans onto that podium as well, but the Danes had a great day. I would say it looks like they had a great day in reality. You have 2 American women and a Danish woman on top, and of course 2 Mexican men finishing 1-2 with a Dane in 3rd. So 3 countries very well represented today.
3 countries with 2 each. Fantastic showing all around. Yeah, Ida was unstoppable today. Realistically, I would have loved to have seen Nicole in here since she's a very, very fast runner on the flats. Sorry, can't speak. It would have been interesting to see if she started the race a little bit more aggressively, even though Ida definitely took it out hard as well.
And as we look forward, let's do a little recap. Jason, can we pull up any of the final rankings for the men's?
You want to tell us about it?
I'll tell you about it. Well, I came today.
Let's listen to Ida real quick.
So first part now I didn't do adventuring in Mammoth, so I just had a lot of wanting to race inside me today, and I was just happy. Yeah, pushed really hard at the first round to kind of scare the others a little bit, but I kept on holding it and gaining time. So
yeah,
really happy about it.
That was awesome.
It was a good course. I mean, flat, which I like. At this time, I trained for altitude. Last time I didn't. It makes it work, so I'm happy I did that. Yeah, so beautiful here. So.
Well, congratulations. Amazing job.
Oh, actually, another thing. This is my first Spartan National Series win.
Nice.
Having a top spot. So that makes it even better. Yeah, on the bucket list. Yes.
Congrats.
Wow. Well, she's so charming. Congrats to her. Let's bring up the list, Jason, that we were talking about before, the men's standings. So this is today's 3K series final, and you can see Angel Quintero just blew the men's field away, but you had a really tightly contested second, third.
Look at how
Manuel
even
Defoe.
Angel's splits were. His slowest lap was 1 second slower than the next fastest by anybody. Angel is just dominant.
Leon had something to say about that, but you're right. It was
6:30. I thought that was my mistake. 6:36.
But his slowest lap was essentially the same as second place's fastest lap, which is saying something.
Running was just a little slower than expected.
It feels weird that it's elevation here, right? 'Cause it's so flat.
I know.
It doesn't feel like it should be.
I know, I was excited for some hills.
Ok, bien, los invitamos a que se queden con nosotros precisamente aquí a un costado se encuentra o se encontraba porque rápidamente nuestros amigos de
We got some gorgeous shots with the sun behind y'all swinging through.
el obstáculo el Laser Pistol, el último obstáculo para llevar a cabo la debida premiación de esta final en la categoría Elite.
All right, Jason, let's check out the women's results. I want to actually dive into those, and then if we have series results, we can look at those last. Ida, speaking about consistency, keeping them all under 8 minutes, very little degradation from her.
Yeah, she went out fast. She 7:09 for that opening lap is moving, but everyone else kind of slowed down about the same rate, 30 seconds or so on that next lap, and you actually see Ali and Yanka pick it up for the final lap, while Ida and Chris slowed down. They kind of probably locked in their place at that point. They didn't need to push it at that then.
Yeah, it is interesting how this thing shook out at the end, where Tippett seems to have closed strong in a number of races this year.
Yeah, we saw in Big Bear, I've mentioned it before, where Ali kind of broke, where the double sandbags just got the best of her, and then she just got her mental game back mid carry, and then ended up passing Ida to take second place at that race. So she's got a really good mental game.
And so let's recap, Jack. By your calculations, let's break down the men's and women's final results. What do we have? Where are our standings?
Yep. So with the third place finished today by Leon, he moved up from 29th to 7th. He got the individual podium. He did not end up on the series podium. However, the series podium will end up being third place Tyler Veerman, who did not show up, but he got 557 points. This is unofficial. And second place is Rylan. First place will be Manuel Defoe. Yep, that's what I've got as well, my spreadsheet.
And Emmanuel Camacho sitting in fourth. Alvaro Vasquez still sitting in fifth. If this is how things actually shook out. I mean, probably exciting for Defoe, a little disappointing for Shadeg. Veerman, I think, did exactly what he was hoping to do. He showed up when it mattered, and was strong. But was that only 2 races for Veerman?
Tyler, he ended up getting 6th in Palm Beach, 2nd in Big Bear. But remember, he actually had something happen at Palmerton. He finished 42nd. I forget if he fell off, or he reached for a bell and then didn't end up completing it. There was some weird scenario that happened there.
And as we look down that list, there's some names that you think maybe will be a factor next year. Hawk Call,
Yep.
Bathurst was very strong. And then, of course, VJ. Let's, if we can see VJ Jones, he did take home the Pan American Championship.
VJ doesn't lose in the 3K when he shows up. So would have been interesting to see him out here.
Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and now, Jason, can we bring up the women's results for the series standings? These are unofficial. These are calculated by us here at the OCR Report. So we have Chris Rogloski taking home the title, 828 points. Ida Matilda Steensgaard in second, and then Yanka Popova in third, just edging out Allie Tippett, which is really, really close. And, of course, if you look down that list, you'll see Nicole Merrill just didn't run enough races to be that factor. Lindsay Webster, same thing. Man, how different this could have been if you had Alex Walker, Lindsay Webster, if you had Nicole Miracle running 3 races in this series.
Yeah, Nicole finished first in Palm Beach, 6th in Big Bear. I think after watching this coverage, she's going to wish she was out there, given the flat, fast nature of this terrain.
And she won the Pan American as well, so.
Mm-hmm. Yep, those points do not count towards this series overall. But Chris Rogloski picking up $5,000 for the second straight weekend in a competition, and she's going to pick up even more at World's Toughest Mudder in about a month.
Must be nice. So as we look forward to the rest of the season, don't forget that our 3K World Championships will be in Abu Dhabi in December, and we do, as you mentioned before, Ida, Nicole, they are flying out for that race. We should assume Chris Rogloski will be racing as well. She runs everything. And then, of course, on the men's side, who do we expect to see, Jack?
Yeah, I haven't talked with a ton of people specifically about Abu Dhabi on the men's side. It's still a couple months out. They haven't sent out invitations, but I believe they'll be doing that soon now that within the next week or two, since it is an invite-only race. Now that the Madrid race is done for the 3K for Europe, and then the North American Elite 3K Series is done as well, and the Philippines. So I believe they'll be sending out invites as well. Based on what I saw today, Angel Quintero, get your butt in a plane and head to Abu Dhabi. You're going to be tough to beat if it's a flat, fast course.
He sure is. And I think it's we have to note as well, in addition to this incredible series that's been a lot of fun bringing it to you over the course of this season, and we're excited about bringing you the final race, the culmination of the 3K year in Abu Dhabi. We also have the DECA World Championships at the beginning of December as well. So if you have not run any DECA fits, get yourself to deca.fit. To get yourself registered for an event. This year, it's too late to run in the World Championships. We will be broadcasting, I believe, and there will be 6 separate main events. So that event is going to be really impressive down in Dallas, I believe. So
first weekend
Jack,
of December.
you going to be there?
Well,
first
you and I are both racing. Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah.
I'm running 6 races that weekend, so it's going to be a blast.
I'm doing 2, and then I'm going to help with the coverage afterwards. So I'll be there for good cause. And then World's Toughest Mudder. Don't forget to look out for that on the OCR report. We'll see Chris Rogloski there for sure. I wonder if anyone else from this race will end up doing it. Probably not, because 3K and 100 miles or 24-hour races, you have to be a very special skill set to pull that off, but you never know who might show up.
So don't forget to subscribe to the OCR Report on Instagram and on YouTube so you can catch up, track all this coverage. And, of course, thank you to our production team, to Jason Dupree for putting out a tremendous product. As always, thank you for Jack Bauer and for Spartan. I'm David Magida, and we will see you guys at the DECA World Champs.